Yo, what is up, boys? How's it going? Welcome back to another stream/video. Today we're reacting. I just finished watching Cyberpunk Edge Runners yesterday, and then I did a podcast about it, the anime version, and I want to react to all the videos I've been recommended for those. People have just been throwing Cyberpunk in my face between Netflix and every fucking YouTuber. But let's start with one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, Penguinz0.
Initiating moisture.
If you're looking at me and thinking to yourself, damn, looks like Charlie hasn't slept in over 24 hours.
Damn, Charlie looks exactly the same. Long hair on point, white tee. Oh no, the white t-shirt's a little scrambled. He is clearly exhausted.
You're absolutely right. And since I couldn't sleep, I decided why not watch the entire Cyberpunk anime that just dropped, Cyberpunk Edge Runners. So Cyberpunk Edge Runners is a new anime set in the Cyberpunk universe, and I don't need an implant to read your mind. You're probably wondering if it's as disappointing as the game was, and the answer is an absolute
No.
fuck no. The anime slaps so hard. Let's just rip this band-aid off now. We all know that Cyberpunk released in a pretty shitty state. There were more bugs in that game than there is in a frat house trash can.
I was looking forward to Cyberpunk. I actually wanted to play it, and then it came out and everyone was shitting on it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep on fueling the Apex addiction. Never stop, never stopping.
And it suffered. It was a very disappointing launch, probably one of the most disappointing launches in recent memory. I understand they've been addressing it and making it better over time, and I think that's great. I haven't gone back to it. I just can't bring
myself. How about you just delay the game, or fucking release the game full? The amount of games that just need like insane amount of updates nowadays is insane. Like just fucking come out with a full game. And the updates should just be like minor patches or more content. The updates should be more content being added to make our experience better. But the base game should be good enough.
Too, it's painful. Like getting a brain dance from a goddamn garbage truck. I really can't see myself going back to the game, but I'm happy they didn't just abandon it in an unacceptable state. But anyway, this anime is set in that universe, and as I understand it, is actually canon to that universe. And I think that's great, because Cyberpunk, even with all its flaws, had an amazing setting. And I'm super glad we get to explore more of it here.
Absolutely. The world the aesthetic was just so cool looking, and the city was just awesome.
Runner, it is so good. Now, it's not perfect. Nothing ever is, unless, of course, it's a Brendan Fraser movie.
Yeah, it's a 10-episode series, you know. They don't have time to flesh out all the characters. But you know what? Surprisingly, the characters that did die, they made me care about them. In the little amount of time that they had. Like, I cared about David, I cared about Lucy, and I cared about the characters that did end up dying. I'm not going to name them, just to, you know, spoilers.
Movie, but this show goes so hard, just non-stop, full throttle, nuts to butts. It's done by Studio Trigger, and I think it is probably their best work so far. It is breathtaking, just a gorgeous, beautiful show. A lot of passion went into this, and it really paid off. They went fucking turbo mode on this one. They dialed this shit up to the next level. I was blown away by it. I think everything fit super well. I even got similar vibes in this show as I did to Redline, which I think is one of the best animated movies ever made. There's just moments.
You know, I've actually never seen Redline. I've been wanting to for a long time, and I said I was going to a long time ago, and I just never did.
Show where I was like, damn, I feel like I'm watching Redline again for the first time, which is just an amazing feeling. One of the best feelings a human being can experience, true euphoria. When you watch Redline, it becomes like the proudest moment of your life, up there with like graduating college or getting married. It's just such a good movie. Highly recommend checking it out, but I'm getting sidetracked. The point is, there were times in this show where I was like, wow, they're up there with some of the best when it comes to animation, especially when it comes to the action. They didn't pull any punches. It's hyper violent, super gory, over the top. Everyone like blows up. There's ribs flying. There's intestines going all over the place. Intestines flying around as poop's falling out the back end. You know, like it goes hard. It doesn't hold anything back, and I love that shit. That hyper violent action is always just a guilty pleasure of mine. It leads to really.
I feel like, for me, and I'm gonna probably say this a couple times this stream, but just to give you guys my overall general thoughts, I just think for a 10-episode series, they kind of hit all the things that I wanted from it. It's like they made me care about the characters. The aesthetic was super cool. The animation was great. The fight scenes were great. But like more importantly, some of the deeper things that they actually went for landed. And then there was a beginning, middle, and end. Like there was a fucking climax and a fucking ending. It wasn't just like, oh, David goes and kisses Lucy and he's all better now and fucking he wins the fight and they go to the moon and happily ever after, you know? Like there was a solid beginning, middle, and end. You had some funny cringe moments with like, I'm built different, bro. But even that is like the whole thing around like being special, but at the end of the day, we're all human. Like everyone has the things that they're better at, you know? But at the end of the day, we're all human. Especially when health is involved. So I like that. There was a few other things that I wanted to touch upon that just isn't coming to mind.
Really goofy, over the top moments that I think are just always fun, and they do it wonderfully here. And since it's set in the cyberpunk universe, the action's pretty creative since everyone's got all kinds of implants and all kinds of crazy cybernetic augments that let them do wild shit. So it's always flashy and it's always great. The action shines, and really everything shines here because they clearly put a lot of work into every little excruciating detail of this universe. I can't praise the visuals enough here. But now let me briefly pop this show's dick out of my mouth. This is where I have a few complaints. It's story and writing. I don't think the story's bad by any means. In fact, I actually really like the story and the direction. But I feel like there was a lot they wanted to tell and only a short time to tell it. It's a 10-episode series, which is pretty normal length. But I really feel like they wanted something bigger. So they condensed all of these massive story beats into really small chunks. So, for example, in episode 1, we learn a lot of information about the main character.
I don't know. I did a decent job. When you actually think of the overall plot of it, it's just kind of whatever, right? Because I think it was Arasaka had a plan for David because they saw that his body was slightly immune. They wanted him to use the cyber skeleton. But David walked his own path, you know? And because of that, we followed what he was doing and like his ambitions and stuff like that. So yeah, it kind of seemed all over the place just because there was a plot in the background trying to move David forward to do something, but then David was doing his own thing and caring about the people around him.
In his relationship to his mom. But we learn all of that information through like maybe 2 minutes of just exposition dump, like constantly. So it leads to a lot of things just kind of falling flat because they got there so quickly without really building up to these things. I'm not going to give spoilers.
Yeah, like would fucking some of the deaths, the people who did die, hit more if more time was spent on them, right? But I'm trying to take it for what it is. It's a 10-episode condensed series. Like obviously if it was 25, maybe some of the character deaths would have hit harder because we would have gotten backstories and they would have been fleshed out more. But I try to keep it for what it is, and I think for the amount of time that they used, I think they made me care. Like, I don't want to say the people who died, but whether it was just David's reaction or the relationship he had with those individuals, I cared.
So I'm not going to go too deep into examples, but I wanted to just highlight the character's relationship to his mother right away because so much happens in such a short amount of time in just episode 1 that it's hard to really care. You know, you just kind of brush it off like, oh, well, I really didn't care at all because...
And it also, like, really set up the world. It's like, this is a grim world where class and money is kind of everything. Like, it was very much presented when the mother was in the accident and people showed up and they're like, oh, no, she doesn't have premium insurance. On to find the actual people with premium insurance. And then she gets picked up later. In the hospital, she's doing all right. And then, oh, her insurance only covered this much, so she died. Like, and then rent was due, and it was even just to attend the school he was going for. It's definitely a very advanced but bleak world.
Because they didn't make me care, and there's just times where the writing's kind of silly.
Yeah, they wanted to make it. They're like the doctor and the other people. They muted it to show how like this is just an everyday norm. She's nothing. This is an everyday norm for this society.
They're having a conversation that's just so stiff, like, Mom, I don't really want to go to school. She's like, you know I want you to go to school for a better life. It's why I'm working so hard for you, David. It's why I'm working these jobs to put money on the table to send you to that very prestigious academy. And it's why I'm never home, David. It's why you never see me at home because you and I, we're not bonding enough because I'm busy working for you. You know, it's just like kind of that old cliche. It's just, I don't know, they hit you so quickly over the head with a lot of exposition that you just kind of roll your eyes at some of the writing. But overall, I still think it's good. Like, the characters I think are well written as they develop throughout the 10 episodes, but they just try and do so much, and they do it a little too fast, in my opinion. It's not...
Yeah, I think maybe if it was a 12, 13 episode show, may have been. But I think if you stretch it out too much, like the plot, there wasn't a lot of plot there. Like the storyline wasn't too complex.
a huge...
I guess they could have made it more complex with Lucy, because once we got her backstory and that she was doing everything to save David and it caused casualties, there could have been more there.
problem or anything. It's not a deal breaker. It doesn't ruin the show or anything, and it doesn't even really hold it back. It's not that detrimental or anything, but it's something that just kind of stood out as...
Really? It felt like the entire time they were talking, it felt not natural? Well, it seemed natural for me. You guys don't get, like, just fucking scolded by your parents and just don't really get a word in, and they're just, like, going hard. Hey, doing this for you.
A bit weaker than the rest of the components. You know, the visuals are on another level. They're popping off hard as fuck, and the soundtrack is always boner jams. The soundtrack is really good, and that's something you'll notice right away in episode 1. Like, as they're just doing things, like even just driving in the car, like with this conversation I was talking about, there's like a backing track to it, which is just like an actually great song that's lightly playing in the background, and it just adds a lot to the ambiance of the whole world. I really appreciated that. I think they did a great job with their music choice here. So yeah, overall the show's amazing. Plugging into the moist meter, I'm giving Cyberpunk Edge Runners a 90%. Really, the biggest flaw with the show is it had too much for too little time. I want more from it. Like, I'm super invested in the universe now thanks to the show, and I would have liked to see it develop more across a longer runtime, like maybe 2 seasons to reach the conclusion that it reaches in the show here, instead of just have it be such a speed run almost. But regardless, the show is absolutely fucking fantastic. I think they did a great job with it, and yeah, that's really about it. See ya.
Alright, boys. What's up? How's it going? Welcome back to another stream slash video. We just reacted to Moist Critical's review of Cyberpunk. But now let's see what Giga has to say. I loved it. I gave it an 8.69 out of 10. I think I actually gave it an 8 on the podcast yesterday.